So I was born in São Paulo capital and I grew up there.
I thought you were going for that Fresh Prince line, like in West Philadelphia, born and raised on the playground is where I spent. Anyway,
What does your English learning and Leonardo DiCaprio have in common? Well, more than you might think. In this episode, we talk about achievements and why just focusing on your goals is a bad strategy when it comes to your English learning. I'm joined in the global studio today by the most like a teacher in all South Africa, the one, the only, Cassie. Hey, Cassie.
hey Tiago, how's it going?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm good. I'm really good today. Thank you for asking.
Awesome. So, Cassie, today we are talking all about achievements, right? But what does it mean? Could you define to our viewers and listeners here what an achievement is?
Yeah, so an achievement is something that you succeed at, something that you a goal that you are successful at, or something that you manage to be really good at in life.
Yeah, and I think achievements are so important in our lives, right? Because if you don't have achievements, what's the purpose of living, right? I mean, it gives us meaning. You work hard for something, for a goal, and then you achieve it, and then you go like, yes, awesome. What's the next challenge? Yeah. So today we're going to be talking all about that, and we're going to be sharing with you guys today some achievements that we have experienced in our personal lives, and I hope that you enjoy it. And also, we're going to explain exactly what Leonardo DiCaprio have to do with all of that. Okay. But before we get started, make sure you subscribe to the channel because every week we put out lessons like this to help you go from feeling lost and insecure as an English learner to becoming a confident, natural English speaker. So hit the subscribe button and bell down below so you don't miss a single new lesson. All right. So, Cassie, I would like to ask you first, what is one achievement you're proud of in your life?
So one thing that I'm really proud of is that like near the end of my high school career, like I was going through some really difficult times like in my family, and I'll spare you guys like the details. It's not a sad podcast episode. I'll save it for next time. But yeah, anyway, so I went through some really difficult times in my family, and I was really struggling to stay inspired or stay motivated or to see, in terms of my self-esteem. And like young kids always think like, oh, what am I going to become when I'm older? Like, am I doomed? Am I destined to just like fail? Or is my life going to be mediocre? Or am I ever going to know what I want to do with the rest of my life? And I struggled with that too. But I kept working hard, I kept studying hard, and I was able to successfully be accepted at the top university in the country. And actually, it's the top university on the continent. I found that out recently. So I was really, it filled me with like this huge amount of not confidence, but I wouldn't say self-confidence, but it gave me that boost, in terms of my self-esteem, and it was like getting that confirmation or affirmation that I am able to do great things if I set my mind to it. And once I had achieved that, once I was able to register and attend this university, I think what also helped me to recognize my potential and my strengths was that I also managed to have really great relationships, or maybe that's not a good word, but I had a really great set of teachers and lecturers at this university who enforced or reiterated those ideas and affirmed me, in terms of the things that I wanted to do. And I know this sounds like I'm just like I was just a kid who was lost and needed a self-esteem boost, but it was bigger than that because I think it shaped the way that I think about myself now. And that might seem like a tiny moment in my past, but I think it paved the way to the person that I am today, and it really is something that set the foundation of like who I am today and how I see myself and where I see myself going. So that to me was an achievement.
Yeah,
for
it's a
sure.
great one. Yeah. So that was when you got into journalism school, right?
No, actually,
No?
not journalism school. I studied film, media, and drama. So,
Before.
those were yes.
Oh,
It,
I didn't know that, you see?
that's it's a backstory to like
Right.
who Cassie is, but yeah, I studied that before I
Wow.
ended up doing journalism.
That's
Yeah,
cool. Yeah. I imagine you must have
yeah.
enjoyed that course. I would have enjoyed that course, I think, you know?
Mm. The person I am today would appreciate that course a lot more than the
Mm.
person I was back then. I think I was still I think I was 17 when I started university.
Mm-hmm.
And I think my mind wasn't quite ready for it. But I always there's a quote that I love. And I English literature was one of my majors as well. That's why I love poetry. I love English so much. But there's a quote by George Eliot that says, "It is never too late to be what you might have been." It is never too late to be what you might have been. So I think that, you know, if I think about like who I was back then and who I am now, I still think the two can connect, and somehow that like media and film studies, English literature, uh, it's gonna play a role. I'm still gonna do what I was supposed to do when I was there. So
That's amazing. That actually reminds me of that famous Steve Jobs commencement speech that he gave, I think, at Stanford in 2005, if I remember correctly. And in that speech, he talks about connecting the dots, how sometimes you take some courses or you do some things in your life, you don't know exactly how you're going to use that information in the future, but you cannot connect the dots looking forward, only looking backwards, right? So maybe in the future you look back and then you go like, oh yeah, now it makes sense why I studied that, why I was interested in that, because and then you can connect the dots. One point that you mentioned that I thought it was interesting was the fact that Cassie from today would probably enjoy that course, the media course, more than Cassie from the past. And I think there is some truth to that in all of us because we are so young, yeah, when we have to make a decision on what to study, like what course to take at college, for example, like 17, 18. I think, yeah, I mean, maybe if you took that course older and more mature, you would enjoy it more. I guess that's why some countries have the gap year, right? Could you explain to the listeners and the viewers what a gap year is in that context?
sure. So a gap year is basically a 1 year, or sometimes people take gap years. It's just a break between studying. So usually after you finish high school, you go straight to college, but some people prefer to take some time off from studying, do something else, maybe go to work, maybe do an internship, or travel abroad or do something that doesn't require them to study. And usually it's a period where they find themselves. That's what people like to say. Find out what they want to do, or maybe save some money. For some people, it's not a matter of like choice, right? So some people need to take some time off studying and to go and work to save some money, or just to figure out what they want to do for the rest of their lives.
Yeah, I think it's a good idea, to see some of the world first, before going back to school again
Mm.
and start studying again. So yeah, I mean, I do see the validity in that. We don't have that here in Brazil, but
Mm.
I think it's a good practice, for young people.
Yeah.
Before I share with you my achievement, Cassie, I do have some vocabulary questions to ask you. So you said the word spare at the beginning. I want to spare you the details or spare you that story. What does that mean?
So if you spare someone from something, it means I'm going to save you. I'm going to save you from it. In other words, I won't bother you by telling you the details. I'm going to spare you from it. I won't put you through having to listen to the details.
And you used a very nice word also. You said doomed. Oh, I'm doomed to.
Doomed.
What does that mean? To be doomed?
Yeah. So if you're doomed to do something, maybe if you study something you don't like and now you're doomed to follow that career path, it means that you have no choice. It's your destiny to do it. But it's a more negative,
Mm,
in a more negative sense. So like, oh,
mhm,
you're doomed to do it. You're gonna have to suffer
mhm.
through that process.
It's like
Yeah.
we're sentenced, right, to it.
Yes,
Yeah, so
exactly.
it's a bad thing, right?
Yeah.
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 Okay. You said the word mediocre. So something mediocre means average, something average,
Mm-hmm.
mediocre. But I
Mm-hmm.
would like to highlight that word because I love the sound of that word, the pronunciation,
Mm-hmm.
mediocre. We say, right? Can you say that again?
Mm-hmm.
Mediocre.
Mediocre.
Ah, there you go. You go a little bit ka at the end there. Yeah. Nice.
Schwa.
The schwa. Yeah, the schwa.
Using my
And
schwa.
the R is not really pronounced in our case, right? At the end.
No, 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 we
Yeah,
don't. We
yeah.
don't use the rolled R or
Uh-huh.
mediocre.
I love the sound of that word. And mediocre or mediocre. Yeah, it's great.
Yeah.
And you also said paved the way.
Mm.
That experience paved the
Mm.
way for you. What does that mean?
Yeah, so when something paves the way for something else, it means think of bricks. Like when you're laying bricks, if you've ever seen that process, or if you think about it, maybe the game Tetris. I don't know. I'm thinking of like bricks on top of each other. So if something paves the way for something else, it means that it's preparing the path, or it creates the stepping stones. It creates the pathway to something else. So you can even say that someone paved the way for me. In other words, someone set the example, they went through it first, and they created the way for me to do it, the opportunity for me to do it. Because someone else did it first, I now have the opportunity to do it because they paved the way. They went through it first, and now I know what to do. So that's my little achievement from when I was younger. How about you, Chiago? Tell us about yours.
Yeah, in my case, Cassie, I think the obvious one for us here is learning English in my home country. I think I was able to learn English very well, never having traveled abroad. That's an achievement that I'm proud of and I will be proud of until I die, right? But I'm not going to get into this today because, we've already done a video where I share my story. So, by the way, guys, if you want to see my story on how I learned English here in my home country, Brazil, you can check out this lesson here that we're going to link in the description and then you can watch it later, okay? But for this episode, I think the achievement I wanted to share was leaving my parents' house when I was 24. I left my parents' house when I was 24, and I moved not only from their house, but also I moved cities. Yeah, so I am originally from São Paulo capital, and I was born and raised there. And then at 24, I came to the city where I live today, Curitiba, which is in the south of the country. And I'm very proud of that because, I wanted my independence at that time. I wanted to, get out of my get what's the expression? Get away or get out of my parents' wing. Is that correct to say that? How do we
You
say
can
that?
say, I wanted to get out from under my parents' wing,
Ah,
like a
yeah.
chicken. The
There you
hen, it
go.
walks and her chicks are under here.
So the correct way to say this is I wanted to get out from under my parents' wings. Yeah, that's what I wanted. Yeah. So I wanted to have my life and my place and, not having to explain myself to everybody. So I did it. Yeah. I came here with a couple more friends at that time. We had kind of a similar goal of making it, right, in this new city, in this new state. Unfortunately, they didn't adapt very well to the city, so they left a few months later. But I did. I love the city, and I got a job at that time rather quickly, and I stayed. Yeah, and I think it was a great decision for me, because then I met my wife. She is from here, and then now we have kids together. Yeah, so yeah, it was a great decision. Yeah, but this idea of leaving, relatively young, I think that was good. It wasn't easy. Of course, I had some challenges, yeah, because you have to do everything by yourself, right? And I did have some people along the way who helped me, especially at the beginning, right, with some key things. But overall, I'm proud of that, of leaving early. Yeah.
I think like the level of independence, that and like self-reliance, I think that's that's it. Because you cannot turn to mom and dad and go like, "Oh, I'm struggling right now." Of course you can. I'm sure your parents would never turn you away, but I think it's you want to show them that, I made this decision, I'm grown. So I think that's really, really
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that word that you use, by the way, self reliance. What's that?
So when you rely, think of the word rely. So when you rely on someone, you need them. I'm relying on you. I need you to help me with this. When you self-rely, you only need yourself. You're depending on yourself, your own strengths, your own abilities. I'm self-reliant. I can do it by myself. It's similar to being independent, I guess. But yeah, think of it more like I don't need anyone else to do this. I'm able to do this on my own. I'm self-reliant.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Cool.
I want to ask you, you said your friends didn't make it. What does it mean when someone doesn't make it?
When you have a goal and
Hmm.
you don't achieve that, you can say
Hmm.
that you didn't make it. So when you are not successful at executing a plan or achieving a goal that you have, you can say that you don't make it. The opposite is also true. If you achieve the goal that you set for yourself, or if you were able to carry out the plan, yeah, that you created, you made it. We usually say
Hmm.
that to refer to success, right? When a person becomes very successful at something, we say that the person has made it.
I also like you said you were born and raised. Um, what does that mean?
Born and raised, yeah. So I was born in Sao Paulo capital and I grew up there. Yeah, so my first 24 years of life were spent there. I was raised there. Your parents raise you, for example, or any close family member, maybe a grandparent, yeah, but you typically your parents, right? So your mom and dad, they raise you, they help you grow up well with education and clothing and food and health, right? This is raising someone. If you have kids, you have to raise them.
I thought you were going for that Fresh Prince line, like in West Philadelphia, born and raised on the playground is where I spent. Anyway,
Oh,
sorry.
nice.
I love that episode you did with with Ethan. I was watching it again.
Yeah,
Anyway,
it's great
so
that you
yeah.
mentioned that. So we can also link that episode in the description below for the viewers and the listeners to listen or watch later. It's episode 325, where
Hmm.
we practice listening skills with the Fresh Prince of Bel Air.
Hmm.
That was a fun one to do. Okay, Cassie, so now that we have both shared a couple of achievements here that we have experienced, I thought it would be cool for us to briefly share a story about someone who has achieved huge success only later in their lives, because many people have this misconception that past a certain age you are too old, right? Oh, past 40,
Hmm.
past 50, or even 60, right? I'm too old, I can't do anything else, or I can't accomplish anything else. But these stories that we're going to briefly share with you guys actually prove the opposite. And you do have a couple of nice
Hmm.
examples to give, right?
I want to add to what you're saying because I think that for women, I'm not saying it's only for women, but I think a lot of the time, women have a different biological clock. So I think women are always thinking by the time they get to 30, they need to have certain things in order. So like usually it's the family life needs to be I don't know, at least by your early 30s, you need to have that family life, husband, kids, or whatever you're starting to think about the future. But when it comes to the career, like they always feel like there has to be a choice. I'm going to be a career woman or I'm going to be a family woman. And this is usually that decision that falls on women. But I think one amazing example of someone who um, really hit her stride like after 30 is J.K. Rowling. I think she's like the best example that I can think of someone who really truly found success later in life, right? When I say later, I'm saying relative because she found it at 32. And that's not late at all for those of you listening. If you're older than 32, you're not late. But I think in terms of what society thinks of as older tends to, by the time you're 32, you should have your life on track. But let me talk about JK. So, like, what she did was she was going through a really tough time. Like she was, I believe she was struggling with depression. She was, dealing with financial issues and going through a really bad divorce. And, she was also a mom, at the time. And while going through all of that, she started to write Harry Potter. And this book obviously then took the world by storm. It blew up. And it was published in 1997. And I think she was 32 at the time. But it really was the start. It was like the spark that just like ignited her career. Like it's in a positive way. Like she really blew up after that.
I think I heard that she wrote the first Harry Potter book in a coffee shop, right? Because I don't know if it was because of
I heard
the
that
heat,
too.
the heating system they had, or the Wi-Fi. I don't know, but she wrote that in a coffee shop. I don't know if it was the whole book or the first chapters. Yeah.
And just think about like, how not only how successful the books are or the films are, but like if we think about our own like learning English with TV lessons, like think about how many fans absolutely adore those lessons because it's become such a staple for English learners as well. So yeah, it's amazing.
By the way, what does that mean when something becomes a staple for a group of
Like
people?
essential. It's like so when something is a staple, it's like an essential, it's like a go-to thing. So if you think of like staple foods of countries, we might say that, I don't know, rice and beans is a staple in Brazil. Corn tends to be a staple here in South Africa, things like that. So yeah,
Essential.
it's a staple,
Nice.
it's a
It's
go-to.
a staple.
Yeah.
It's a great piece of vocabulary. I like that. Yeah, and one example that I have of someone who achieved huge success only later in life is actually Steve Carell. Because I even have here a paragraph that I got from an article, and let me read it to you guys. Beloved comedian Steve Carell is known for his many blockbuster hits, including The 4-Year-Old Virgin and The Big Short. But he didn't land his hit role as Michael Scott in The Office until he was 42. So, I think that show really made his career. Yeah. And we both love The Office. It's such a hilarious TV show. And it's crazy to think that when he got that role, he was 42 years old already. Right. So, it's a good example of maybe I think maybe he had made movies before already. He was already working on it in the industry. But the big break, let's say, yeah, or that role that made his career, yeah, or that really put him on the map, it only came in his 40s, right? So that's another example that I can think of, yeah, about that.
I like what you said, putting him on the map. What does that mean?
When, in this case, a person becomes more evident or more famous, yeah, maybe he was making small movies or small productions before, he was maybe somewhat well known, but after The Office, he became worldwide famous. So that show put him on the map. But still talking about achievements, right? Another point that I think is important to mention here is that it's important to enjoy the journey, right? Because sometimes we might feel obsessed with the goal, maybe, like learning English or being fluent. But if you don't enjoy the journey, it's going to be very hard for you to actually get to your destination. Yeah, because the journey is not pleasant. And these are examples that we are sharing here, for example, like Steve Carell or even J.K. Rowling, for example, yeah? They were doing the work for a while, yeah? Before
Exactly.
getting that goal or achieving that level of success. And another example that I can think of is Leonardo DiCaprio, now bringing DiCaprio into the discussion, because I remember watching his first movie, I think, in the 90s. I don't know if it was his first movie or one of his first movies called Basketball Diaries or something like that. The Basketball Diaries, and he plays a
Yeah.
teenager who is addicted to drugs, and I could see back then that he was such a good actor already, but he didn't stop there. I think 2 years later he did Titanic, which was huge, you know, and ever since, he has been making lots of good movies. But he only won the Oscars recently. Yeah, I think with The
Yeah.
Revenant, and it was a few years ago. And there was even talk already of, oh, when is Leo DiCaprio gonna win the Oscar for Best Actor? When, people were kind of expecting it, but it
Yeah.
wasn't happening until it finally
Exactly.
happened like years later. Yeah. Did you see that, by the way?
Yeah, that's
His
true.
acceptance speech.
Yeah, I did. I did. And something that I think as well, just to touch on what you mentioned before, like it's like people could be telling you, "Oh, you're so good at this," or "You should keep going," and you're thinking to yourself, "Nah, I should give up." If I was good, I would have been winning awards. If I would have been recognized by the film industry a long time ago. I've been doing this for years. I should just give up. I'm not that good. And I think with Leonardo DiCaprio in this example, I keep thinking that I don't think he was phased by
Mm,
um the idea of like I need to win the award in order to feel good about myself, or I
mm-hmm.
need to win this award in order for me to recognize myself as a good actor. He was still taking on roles. He was never going bankrupt. He wasn't declining anything. He was just living his life, enjoying the process, as you mentioned before. And I
Mm-hmm.
think this is so important for all of us to think about, like where we are at in our careers or in our learning journeys. Um, and yeah, I think it's just a really great point that you raised. But yes, on his acceptance speech, really, I felt moved. I thought it was really, really. I think there was so many memes about like him before, like him not winning, like Leo just always waiting for his turn. It was a proud moment for sure.
Yeah,
I
I
think.
think he's known for being concerned about the environment. Yeah, and I think he
Hmm.
actually used that opportunity when he accepted the Oscars to talk about that, right? Uh, Trying to
Yeah.
raise people's awareness of the environmental issues we have nowadays, right?
Issues. Yeah.
So
Hmm.
also we could say that that was an example of someone who was standing up for what they believe in. So at that moment, he was standing up for a belief that he had. And what does that mean when you stand up for what you believe in?
So I remember when we were discussing like today's episode, we were talking about like the difference between like standing up for or standing up to,
Mm-hmm.
and totally different things. So I'll just explain the difference in preposition there as well. So when you stand up for something, you are saying that, this is what I believe in. This is the right way. I'm standing up for this. I'm in agreement. You're aligning yourself with that thing or that idea, and you're saying, I'm going to support this. I'm going to back this. I'm going
Mm-hmm.
to put myself in front. Like, let's say you're standing up for human rights, you're standing up for the environment, you're saying this is the cause that I believe in.
Mm-hmm.
But if you stand up to someone or something, it's more confrontational. You're
Right.
saying, I'm going to stand up to the government. I don't know, for some reason. If
Mm-hmm.
you feel like standing up to your government, it means that you're saying, I don't agree with what you're saying, and I'm
Mm-hmm.
going to stand up to you now. I'm going to have
Yeah.
my say.
Yeah, and that actually reminds me, Cassie, of a fun fact about the Oscars that I didn't know about until a few years ago. As you guys can see here in my background, I am a huge Godfather fan. And Marlon Brando, who plays the main character, one of the main characters in the first movie, he won the Oscars for Best Actor in the 70s. That was 1972 or 3, if I'm not mistaken. But he rejected the Oscars. He turned it down. And actually, I thought it would be cool for us to watch the clip here of when he was announced as the winner and what happened. So, Thiago, could you please play it for us?
The winner is Marlon Brando in The Godfather.
Accepting the award for Marlon Brando and The Godfather, Miss Shasheen Littlefeather.
Hello, my name is Sasheen Littlefeather. I'm Apache, and I'm president of the National Native American Affirmative Image Committee. I'm representing Marlon Brando this evening, and he has asked me to tell you in a very long speech, which I cannot share with you presently because of time, but I will be glad to share with the press afterwards, that he very regretfully cannot accept this very generous award. And the reasons for this being are the treatment of American Indians today by the film industry, and on television in movie reruns, and also with recent happenings at Wounded Knee. I beg at this time that I have not intruded upon this evening, and that we will, in the future, our hearts and our understandings will meet with love and generosity. Thank you on behalf of Marlon Brando.
I mean, can you imagine how shocking that must have been at the time? I don't remember. Maybe there were other cases, but I don't remember other people like rejecting the Oscars. Maybe there are, but what did you think?
Yeah, I think it is quite shocking and quite like powerful, I think is the way I would describe it, because I think people standing up for what they believe in tends to connect with our emotions in a way. Like, I mean, whether or not it was something that you thought of before, or, I mean, it's that bravery. It's like sort of like you're so courageous to stand up and reject something that so many thousands of actors in Hollywood, millions even, I mean, over time, have like wanted this thing. And you're saying, I don't want it. If that means that you're going to keep treating Native Americans in this way, or, you know, I just, yeah, I mean, in terms of the representation, which we can get into in a minute, but I really think it's very powerful. I think it's brave. I think it's courageous. I think it's something that the world needs more of.
Yeah, I think there's an interview that Marlon Brando gave after at a famous talk show in the 70s explaining his reasoning, why he decided to do this. But did you hear how when she was speaking, some people in the audience was booing her? You know, what does it mean to boo somebody off stage?
If you're booing someone, you are basically sort of making a negative, having a negative reaction by making the sound like boo, like sort of like a thumbs down.
I love the fact that, you know, in English, that word is literally the sound that we make, right? Boo, yeah. The word is the sound we
Yeah.
make. In Portuguese, it is a completely different word for that. Yeah, it's vaiar. Vaiar. It's completely
vaiar.
different. Yeah, but I love the
Vaiar.
fact that in English we just, you know, it's the sound, yeah, to boo, boo, yeah. She does say one nice piece of vocabulary there that I think is nice to define. She talks about movie reruns. What is a rerun? A movie rerun?
So a rerun is a repeat. So when the movie runs, it goes, it plays. But when you're rerunning it, you're playing it again for like, I don't know, the second or third time. So, or whenever, you know, however manyth time. So a rerun is a repeated episode or movie that's been repeated more than once.
And I wanted to bring this clip today because recently I saw a piece of news from last year. It's very recent, in 2022, saying that the Academy, right, actually issued a formal apology to her only now, 49 years later. Yeah, this is like very recent, last year, yeah, for the way that she was treated on that day, in that evening. But can you imagine, like, you know, almost 50 years later? Yeah, the Academy finally issues a formal apology. Yeah, so I thought it was very interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not surprised. Let me put it that way. I think progress in everything in society as well takes a while. I think at the time, people's mindsets, their perspectives on things were different to what they are today, and I'm really not surprised. It's terrible, but I'm really not not surprised that it took them this long. I'm actually happy that they at least got around to doing it. because yeah, these things often go unaddressed.
Yeah, yeah.
So yeah.
So we were talking about beliefs and standing up for what you believe in, right? It also reminds me of Simon Sinek, and in his famous TED talk, he talks about how when you talk about things that you believe, you naturally attract people who believe what you believe, who believe the same things you do. It's really about finding your group of people, your community, right? And for English learners, I think a great way for you to do that is by using our app. If you want to connect with other passionate English learners who, just like you, are in this journey of improving their English and becoming more fluent in English, you should definitely check out our app. And I think now is a perfect moment for us to go to a shout out section here. We have recently received from one of our followers, Mohammed, really a really cool audio message. And this first audio message that we're gonna listen together is about his experience with the app and what he thinks about the Real Life English app. Let's give it a listen.
There are many exciting things about Real Life English app like the transcript and the flashcards. But what I like the most about the app is that I can find a speaking partner anytime from anywhere in the world and practice English, listen to different accents and discover other cultures and ways of life through them. With a premium account, I have full access to the app features and podcasts, and the most exciting part is the unlimited speaking time. I was good at writing and reading in English, but not much in speaking. But with the app, I have more confidence to speak English. I have more vocabulary, and now it's easier for me to express myself in English. And that's what's cool with the power of oh yeah.
That's an awesome audio message, Mohammed. Thank you so much. And by the way, your English is incredible. Okay, keep learning, keep developing, because that was awesome. And Mohammed also left a comment or an audio message about the fact that we are doing the video podcast now on YouTube. So let's listen to the second message that he sent us about our YouTube video podcasts. Let's do it.
Hi, it's good to see you record your podcast lessons in video. It feels like we are all together even though we are far from you. I'm glad that I found Real Life English. It brought my English to a higher level. The first time I saw just the name, I told myself that it's really what I'm looking for because I wanted to become fluent in English, to speak it and live it differently instead of learning it the old way, which was boring. Some may know what I'm talking about. My English is much better now, but I don't want to stop here. I still have a lot to learn. What I fear the most is to be stuck on my current level and not improve at all. You are really doing a good job. It is really helpful, so thank you, Ethan, Jago, Cassie, and the team working hard on the Real Life English app. I love you so much. Keep up the good work. And now what I've been waiting for. Oh yeah.
Thank you so much, Mohammed, for that awesome feedback. It's really wonderful to know that you enjoy the podcast that much. And to any of you guys out there, if you would like to share your feedback or your comments on the podcast, be sure to leave your comments down below.
Or you can send us an email at fluencyteam@reallifeglobal.com. All right? Finally, Cassie, now let's talk about the real life way moment for this episode. Which component of the real life way would you connect with this conversation that we had today about achievement?
So I would definitely say that this connects with the mindset. And, we mentioned before about, how our achievements sort of shape us and how, even if it's a little achievement, even if it's something small that seems insignificant in the moment, or a small victory, let's call it that. If it's a small victory that seems minor, might seem insignificant in the moment, but it could lead to great things if you keep going, if you keep working at it. And that starts with a really specific kind of mindset, right? You have to have that sort of willingness and that endurance to keep going.
Yeah, we talk about the growth mindset a lot here too, yeah? Instead of having a fixed mindset, a growth mindset. I'm always learning. I'm open to the journey, and life is an adventure. That's pretty much it. Awesome. So now we want to hear from you guys, dear viewers and listeners. The question for today is, have you seen any movie lately that blew your mind or that blew you away? Share with us in the comment section below a nice movie that you have seen recently. Or again, you can also send us an email at fluencyteam@reallifeglobal.com. I hope you enjoyed today's episode and stay tuned for next week's one because it's going to be also packed with info, vocab, inspiration, and other fun stuff. And I'll talk to you soon. So 1, 2, 3. Yeah.
Oh, nice.
Cassie and I have here some memorable travel stories to share with you guys today. And to get started with this topic, I have a funny little thing here to read to you guys. It's fun, yeah, so check it out. Vacation or staycation? You know, not taking time off can be a huge complication. Whether you see a coral snake next to you or make a taxi driver blush with embarrassment, travel stories are always fun to share. In today's episode, we'll have some fun by sharing some memorable experiences we've had while traveling. Yeah, just a little bit of a quick intro there.